What is going on, gunfighters? Another Glock talk. How to shoot a Glock well if you have to shoot a Glock. Welcome to the podcast where hopefully I tackle this topic and, God willing, many more in the future the right way with God Almighty at the center, biblical Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. On that, I usually say military, law enforcement, private security, contracting, competition shooting, etc. Let's get down to the Glock thing. I got my first issued Glock when I joined L.A.P.D. Before that, I carried a Beretta 92 in combat in the Marine Corps. I got issued the Glock when I went to L.A.P.D. That would have been 2009. And I've used one off and on ever since. I currently work the primary breadwinning job as a private security contractor. I carry a Glock on my hip. I recently got an award for shooting a perfect score on our qual, which is not a hard qual to pass, but it's not easy to get a perfect score. I've also won I forget how many competitions with a Glock, because I literally can't remember. I've won competitions with a Glock. I even won I got a Glock 500 award for shooting a perfect score in a GSSF competition. Not only did I win a competition, but I shot a perfect score with a Glock, which not easy to do. So I can shoot a Glock well. That's what I'm saying there for the bona fides. I can shoot a Glock well. That being said, I don't like Glocks. I think they're the bare minimum. I'm not telling you this so you'll shoot a Glock. I don't even like talking about Glocks, but you guys like when I talk about Glocks. And I'm not doing this podcast for me. I'm doing it for you guys. I'm doing it to serve. I've worked contracts where they allow you to carry your own gun. I carry like an STI 2011 or a SIG 226 if I could. But I would not be carrying a Glock. That said, I have to. Many of you guys have to, or many of you guys choose to because you think they're a good gun or you got pushed by some influencer or somebody that's never shot anything else to say that it's a good gun or whatever the case is. Many of you guys are running Glocks. And again, I'm here to serve you guys. This is not my endorsement of Glocks. It's not that I think they should still be a thing in 2026. They were a decent option in the 90s. But a lot of people still shoot Glocks. A lot of agencies still issue them. They're cheap. They work. Much the same way a horse-drawn carriage still works to get you from A to B, right? It still technically works. But I just want to get that out of the way. I'm not saying they're the best gun out there. They are one of the most common guns out there. So a lot of you guys are shooting Glocks, and you can shoot well with a Glock if you have to shoot well with a Glock. So those of us that have to, or those of you that choose to carry a Glock, how do you shoot them well? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Okay, my two big issues with the Glocks are the ergonomics are bad, and the triggers are bad, and the sights are bad. These are pretty much the main things. But you can work around those. The easy way to do a lot of that is to buy aftermarket stuff, but then are you really shooting a Glock? I would submit no, why not? Spend the same money and get something better to start with, or spend the money on the Glock and the upgrades on a better gun to start, even if you're going to stick with a polymer gun, striker fire, like in a HK VP9 or something. Why not just do that from jump? So we're going to stick with a factory Glock, like I have on my hip at work, private security contracting, or that you might have agency issued, or that you might choose to run. I'm going to stick with factory stuff. If Glock perfection, if it's really perfect, why is there all the aftermarket stuff for it? Question there. But anyway, how to shoot a factory Glock well if you have to, whether it's the factory plastic Glock sights or the factory issued night sights. Most of them do not shoot point of aim, point of impact. They shoot over the sights. You have to do like a 6 o'clock hold. And when you start getting back farther, even like 15 yards, a lot of times you'll have to aim lower, unless you're flinching. If you're flinching, you might love the Glock because it shoots high and you're dropping your shots low. But if you're not flinching, it generally shoots high with most common grain weights. It's going to shoot high at like 15 yards, 25 yards. So you're probably going to have to aim, if you're aiming at like a silhouette, towards the bottom third of the silhouette to hit somewhere in the high center chest where you want to. So that's one way to do it. Obviously, the other way would be to get different sights on there, but we're sticking with the factory Glock. The other thing is that the Glock has a very unnatural grip angle for the vast majority of people. In my experience, I've also been a firearms instructor, F.B.I certified handgun instructor. I taught at one of the largest private training organizations in the country as a professional firearms instructor, N.R.A. for what that's worth, right? So that said, for most people, I'm going to say for most people, it's not natural. The Glock grip angle is not natural. Generally, if you have somebody shut their eyes and push the gun out, in my opinion, it aims high. It like points high. Again, if you flinch a bunch, maybe you love that. But if you're not dropping shots, then you probably don't. So you have to kind of push the gun out and then level the sights. It's an extra step. You know what? CQB distances, 3 yards, really not a big deal. It's gonna not impact you that much on your point of aim, point of impact. But when you start moving back, 15 yards, 25 yards, 50 yards, you had better line those sights up or you will miss. So generally you have to push out and you either have to marry the Glock, and that's the only gun you're ever going to shoot, and you're going to push it out and then adjust your grip and do that so many times you get the automaticity to do it. That's one way. The other way would just be to shove it out like you would naturally just shove it out and shoot, but you have to shove it out and then align the sights, drive the sight down, and then shoot. So that's another way to do it. Equal height, equal light. Just say that little ditty in your head, equal height, equal light, and then squeeze the trigger instead of just pushing the gun out and have it naturally point where you're shooting. Or you could just know, like, again, push it out and know where you have to aim at different distances. Like, know that you're just going to push it out and shoot, but you're going to have to aim off the target at certain distances if you're not going to readjust the sights. You're just going to deal with a wonky sight picture, like the front sight is high, so you're going to push it out, and it's going to be lower on the target, but the front sight's high, so it shoots where you're aiming. If you play around with that enough, you can get really fast and accurate with it at reasonable distances. But that, again, you got to get the reps in with it to know where that is for you. That's going to depend on your height, how much higher your head is than your body, all kinds of different things in there. But that is a technique that you can do if you must shoot a Glock. Another thing I'm going to touch on is the grip texture itself. If you are running a Gen 4 or a Gen 5, even a Gen 3 RTF, but most of the Gen 3s are not RTF, rough texture frame. They're older than that. They have a real smooth grip. You're going to have to grip that gun harder. So, do your extra pull-ups, do your, weighted pull-ups, hang from the bar, whatever it is, but you're going to have to grab it real hard and squeeze it real tight, which is going to make you tired faster. So, dry fire a lot and practice even more than you normally would. Again, you can shoot well with a Glock. Again, I've won competitions with a Glock. I've done all kinds of stuff with a Glock, but it's rolling a boulder uphill when you could just be rolling it level or downhill. You're gonna have to do more work. If you have one of those older guns with a smooth frame and you're not going to, take a Dremel to it, or you're not gonna put grip tape on it or something, you're gonna have to grip it harder. So just be aware of that. The new ones, to be fair, they've improved that. The Gen 4s and the Gen 5s, the Gen 6s, they have a good frame texture. You don't need to apply as much force, but the older ones you're probably going to have to. So on the grip there, that's something to be aware of. Even most agencies, though, even though if you have to shoot a factory Glock, it's an issued gun, they read your SOPs or whatever. But you're probably allowed to put grip tape on your gun because you can just tear it right off. It's not like a permanent modification. So I know I said factory Glocks, but if you're shooting an older one, you might want to look at putting some skateboard tape. Now they make like actual grip tape. Back in the day, we just used skateboard tape. But you might consider that, even if it's a factory Glock. Most places, I think, would be okay with you putting that on there. Check with your department, with your agency, whatever. But yeah, that old skateboard tape was a good hack back in the day. Now let's tackle the big one, the trigger. The triggers on Glocks are, the best word I can think of, is atrocious. I've often likened it to dragging a piano down a gravel road. It's just gritty and grindy and springy, and then something breaks eventually, and something happens. That's the Glock trigger. Again, we're not talking about improving Glock triggers. There's like whole giant aftermarket companies because the triggers are so bad. But we're talking about the factory Glock trigger. In general, the Gen 3s are okay. The Gen 4s are the worst. The Gen 5s are even better than the Gen 3s. I've only dry fired a Gen 6, but it was good. I think it's probably better than a Gen 5. None of these are good. They're just better than each other, right? So don't take that as me saying they're a good trigger. They're still a really, really atrocious trigger. They're just better than the previous gens, except for the Gen 4, which was worse than the Gen 3. But the triggers have a lot of take-up. They have a lot of slack. They have a lot of stages. If they were like you debate in the rifle world, like I want a single stage trigger or a double stage trigger. You know, you want like a clean take up and then a wall and then a break. That's a good a 2-stage trigger for a rifle. If you're doing like rifle competitions, some prefer single stage, some prefer 2-stage. The Glock is like a 19, 20, 25-ish stage trigger. It's like grit, stack, break. And then a bunch of extra take up and slack and grit. And then you hit a wall, and then you do it all again. So just ignore all that and just pull the trigger straight to the rear. Forget it. My advice to you is forget all the other stuff. Just work on a smooth, steady press to the rear, let it break, and then repeat the process. I know that sounds simple because it is. You shoot a Glock well like you shoot any other handgun well. You put the sights on the target, on the Glock's case, probably low on the target. You put the sights on the target, and then you fire the gun without moving the sights. That's basically all it takes to be an expert handgun shooter. Easy to say, lifetime to get good at and master. It's one of those things that's simple but doesn't make it easy to do. Simple is a better word. Simple but not easy to do. It's simple for me to tell you how to run a marathon. You already know how to run, right? So just do that for 26.2 miles. Congratulations. You ran a marathon. Again, simple to explain, not easy to do in practice. That's pulling a Glock trigger well. Simple to do, just hold the sights there and just work through that gritty trigger smooth and steady to the rear and then reset it. I am not one to shoot to reset. I've been down that road. I've tried it. I've spent a lot of time. I've gotten good at it. I think it's a garbage technique that's only around because you have to deal with such bad triggers. Even then, I think shooting to reset is a bad idea. Even guys that have trained on it, if you get one and you're instructing them and you run them, you go faster, and you notice them, they're not shooting to reset anymore. If you're just like shooting at an indoor range and you like are shooting at a flat range and you're like doing all the things and thinking about it, that's fine. But just like the human eye, the human brain generally only focuses on one thing at a time, like hardcore focus. Your hardcore focus probably should be on the tactical situation. I'm not a big fan of the shooting to reset. Again, I've done it. I know how to do it. I can teach it. I'm familiar with the technique. It's not that I can't do it or can't do it well. I think it's an inferior technique. I think not shooting to reset is better. Just go all the way out and all the way in every time, smoothly, quickly. I think that's a better technique. As somebody that's very familiar and done both. And I think it's a better technique. I don't like shooting to reset. If somebody wants me to teach them, I can. I can do it. I can show it. I can teach it. I don't like it. I think it's an inferior technique. I think it's like teaching somebody the old Weaver stance for a handgun. Like, it's ancient, dude. Like, we don't need that anymore. I can do it. I can teach it. I can shoot good in the Weaver. I think it's an inferior technique. So that's what I'm telling you about shooting to reset. Even with a Glock trigger, I think you're better off not shooting to reset. Get your sights on the target, pull the trigger straight, smooth, all the way back, and then do it again. Just get the reps in. The reason people do shoot to reset, especially with a Glock trigger, is the Glocks are so long and they have so much extra movement and they're so gritty, you kind of get rid of about half of that if you shoot to reset. Okay, that's fair, and it does work. I just think it's better if you just get good at pulling a trigger, whether it's light or heavy, whether it's a long double-action revolver trigger or a beautiful, crisp, delicious single-action 1911 trigger, whatever the trigger is. If you just have a smooth all the way out, all the way in, every time you'll shoot the gun well every time, assuming you do the other stuff correctly. I think that's a better technique than shooting to reset. So I'm even with a Glock, even with that horrible trigger, I'm going to tell you, don't do it. You don't need it. It's an inferior technique. It's more complicated than it has to be just to get rid of a little bit of superfluous movement that shouldn't be there in the first place. Just pull it smooth. You can also cause a malfunction this way. And I don't mean like a mechanical malfunction in the gun. You can do that with a revolver if you try to shoot to reset, because revolvers don't shoot to reset. If you get good at the technique of shooting to reset and you go to shoot a revolver, you may actually cause a mechanical malfunction. I'm talking about a U malfunction. Glock triggers aren't all the same. Even if you get two factory Glock 19 Gen 3s side by side, they probably don't have the same reset. If you get really good at one and you go to a different Glock, even a different Glock, you may cause a malfunction. Or if your timing is off that day, you can literally cause a malfunction. Again, not a mechanical malfunction of the mechanism itself of the Glock, but of you. Like you think you're shooting to reset, but you don't let it go out quite far enough, and you're sitting there with a dead trigger. That happens. And if you're getting shot at, that could get you killed. So, again, I'm not a fan of the technique. And the bad guy's probably not going to let you sit there and get a couple dry fire reps in that day, or practice with that particular Glock or whatever it is, or do a couple of reps at the, go to the local indoor shooting range and try your shooting to reset that day before you get in the gunfight. It's probably not going to happen that way. So you can cause malfunctions or really, really slow follow-up shots if your shooting to reset is not correct. It's a thing. So again, not a big fan of the technique. You can do it if you want. It's not an invalid technique. I just think it's an inferior technique. But that Glock trigger, again, you can shoot well with a Glock, but you're going to be rolling that boulder uphill. So if you're going to do it, you're going to have to put the extra reps in with that trigger. The good thing is if you shoot good with a Glock trigger, you're probably going to shoot really good with any other trigger because, again, you're rolling a boulder uphill. Once you get to rolling a boulder on flat ground, it's a lot easier. So that's kind of the good news. You go from that to like a SIG 226. You go from that to a 1911 or a 2011. You're like, whew, this is so nice. So the good news is, again, and a lot of times I will train with a Glock for several reasons. One is I have to carry one on duty, right? Another one is that if I'm going to demonstrate or if I am instructing, a lot of times I'll shoot a Glock because that's what most of the students are shooting. And I don't want them to think that I'm shooting really well because I have a 2011, because that's only a tiny fraction of it. Most of it is you being a good shooter. In fact, when I was the commander of a tactical team, I carried a 2011, but when I went to training with the guys, I bring out the Glock. Factory Glock, factory trigger, because that's what most of them were shooting, because that's what they could afford for whatever personal reasons they had. Some people had better guns, but a lot of people shot a Glock. So when I came out, guess what I would bring a lot of the times, or when we're going through like initial training, I bring out a Glock, factory Glock 17. Why? Because I wanted them to see it's not so much about the gun as it is the shooter. And that's the good news. Again, to put a bow on this, you can shoot a Glock well. As bad as it is, you can do it well. So if you're going to do it right. The fundamentals are the same, right? Stance, grip, sight picture, trigger control, breath control, sight alignment, follow through. Those are all the same, whether you're shooting a 1911 or an AR-15 or a musket or a Glock. So the fundamentals are the same. So apply the fundamentals. You're just probably going to have to be more strenuous about it with the Glock than on many other platforms. How about, because I probably peed in a lot of your guys' Cheerios, how about some good things about the Glock? I'm going to think real hard. There's a few, right? They're pretty light for the firepower. So for a gun that you're going to carry all day and probably not shoot a lot like most cops, right? You're going to carry it all day, day after day, year after year. They're pretty light for the firepower. Even compared to like a SIG 226 or Beretta 92, they're pretty light. You're talking to 20-ish ounces for a full-size fighting handgun. That's pretty light. Again, there are a lot of other newer polymer striker fires that are as light, but compared to many guns, they're pretty light for the firepower. So if you're going to carry it more than you're going to shoot it, that's a big benefit. And I'm not, again, that is a big benefit. Another big benefit is that they have a low bore axis. So even though they're light, if you get good and you get a good grip and everything, good stance, you can shoot them pretty fast. You got to deal with that trigger, but once you get good at that, you can shoot them pretty fast. they have a pretty low bore axis. So even though they're pretty light, the recoil on them is not bad. And the big one for Glock, they're reliable. Now, I think there's a lot of other guns. I just did a recent episode. There are a lot of other guns as reliable as a Glock, but a Glock is a reliable handgun, and they're affordable. There's a lot of trade-in ones, so you can usually get a good one, especially talking again, cops carry them a lot and shoot them a little, so you can probably get a police trade-in. That's a pretty decent gun that has a lot of life left in it for a decent price. Obviously, Glock marketing is phenomenal, so a lot of agencies and stuff get those for cheap, and if you are if you can get in on the Blue Label program, that's what they call it, the Glock Blue Label program, you can you get one even cheaper, like a big discount on what a regular Glock costs, and they're not expensive to start with, in my opinion, right? So that's in the eye of the beholder for some people, and I know I've been poor. I grew up poor. For some people, a high point might be too expensive, but as far as a lot of other guns go, they're pretty affordable. They work. That's why a lot of agencies adopt them. They're cheap and they work, right? So the Glocks have that going for them. And rest assured, if you have good solid fundamentals, you can shoot any gun well, even a Glock. So how to shoot a Glock well if you have to shoot a Glock. I'll title it something like that. Again, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was helpful. I do this to help you guys out. If you want to help me out, consider becoming a patron. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. I do a lot of special episodes on there for just patrons. There's also a lot of posts and stuff on there where you can vote for stuff. I'll try to pass on deals. I just passed on a couple before I did this episode on like cool gun deals on things that I saw. I try and bring value to you guys because you guys help support me. If this gunfighter life is something you want to support, again, consider becoming a patron. If you can't afford it, if you don't have $5 a month to feed your family, by all means do not. And listen to this and do not feel guilty about it at all. Maybe you consider liking, subscribing, leaving your review. I don't know what it does, but I think it helps. I'm not the most techie of people, as you might imagine from the audio. But if you can't afford $5 a month, I don't want you to take food out of your family's mouth. But for the fraction of a cost of a box of ammo, you could help support, one gunfighter, play the lonely Sarah McLachlan music, right, in the background. But no, seriously, if you can't afford it, like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. And with that, your tactical tip of the day, although this episode's been a lot of tactical tips on Glocks. If you are buying a used Glock and you want to see how much it's been shot, a pretty good indicator is pulling that slide back. Most gun shops will let you do that. They may or may not let you dry fire, which kind of irks me, but most modern guns you can dry fire just fine. But you pull the slide back, you look at the barrel. You'll get what's called a Glock smile. So if it's been shot a lot, you'll see a really, really well-defined silver kind of smile, half-moon shape on the front of that barrel. If it's you can barely see it, that Glock's been shot very, very, very little. If you see a really pronounced one, top and bottom, or several different iterations of that half moon, it's been shot a lot. It still may have some life in it, but that's just a good indicator if you're buying a used Glock. If you pull one back and you see like no Glock smile or just a little indication, man, that Glock's good to go for a long time probably. Any gun can break at any time, but it's probably got a lot of life left in it. If you are able to disassemble it and you look in there and you see that copper-colored kind of cosmoline, real thick grease, that means that's the factory grease. That thing may have never been shot. And you might find one that's sold as used because somebody bought it. They thought they were going to use it and something happened and they had to sell it, and they never shot it, which is totally a thing. They may have shot it once or twice at the factory to make sure it worked, but if you see that copper-colored cosmoline on the inside of the slide, thing's probably never been shot from the owner. So that's a really good indicator you see one of those. So that's your tactical tip there for buying used Glocks. Your tactical verse of the day. Tactical verse of the day here. Let us go to Nahum. God is jealous, and the Lord avenges. The Lord avenges and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserves wrath for his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. Now, my comments here. I've recently got a thing from, I try and post Bible verses pretty often on Patreon, and I got a question on there that I thought was a good question from somebody. Maybe, we're all at different stages in this walk with Christ. Hopefully that continues for a while. And he says something like, I thought jealousy was a bad thing. Why would that be an attribute of God? It was something to that effect as far as that verse. I posted that verse and he came back with that, which I thought was an honest question. He's wrestling with it, Israel, he who wrestles with God, that's what that means. But God is a jealous God. It says that often. God is a jealous God, and I don't shy away from that, and I don't not post those verses, right? God is a jealous God. And here's my thoughts on this. The law was given for our good, the Bible says. The law was given for our good. God is jealous for you. He tells you not to have idols. God is to be your main love. What's the greatest of all the commandments? Jesus says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. My comments again. God should be your main love. He's jealous for you because loving anything above God or in place of God is bad for you. He loves you. He loves you so much he died for you. Loving anything above God, a woman, a gun, money, fame, loving anything more than God is idolatry, and that's bad for you. That's why God is jealous, because it's good for you, not bad. It's not bad at all for God to be jealous. It's great for God to be jealous, because God's a great God, and there's no bad in him. Those are my thoughts. With that, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.